Welcome everybody, WandaVision. More specifically, WandaVision Episode 8, the penultimate episode, the episode right before the finale. I watched this episode yesterday, but didn't really have a chance to talk about it yesterday because I didn't really get the time to. But I'm here now, I'm here to talk about this episode right now. So let me just start off with the most important part is, I liked it. I really liked the episode, one of my favorite episodes of the season. However, this kind of made me revisit my previous point from a couple of weeks ago where I said that episode 4 was my least favorite episode of the show so far. I still liked the episode, it was just, it felt a little bit out of place. It felt like the showrunners said, okay, we can't just have every episode be a sitcom from a different decade, we gotta give the audience something to grab on, something to keep them watching, and then they dropped episode 4, which was basically the prelude to this episode. And pretty much everything kind of changed after that, and ever since that we kind of realized that there's like two completely different continuities, one existing inside the Hex bubble, which is the decade's sitcom, and outside the bubble, which is just everything going on outside the bubble with Sword and everything. And this episode was mostly focused entirely on Wanda. It was the big reveal, the big explain-o-vision episode, as I like to call it. Now, it revealed a lot of different things. First of all, Agatha is a witch from the 17th century, I believe, 1693, so 17th century, late 17th century, and she's been alive for like 3 and almost a half centuries. We don't know what she's been doing. We know that she has been using dark magic above her station, above what she was meant to train. The leader of her coven was actually her mom, and she kind of stole some magic from witches to kind of and killed them essentially to kind of stay alive. Maybe that's how she's been able to stay around for as long as she has. Maybe that's why she's immortal. I mean, we have seen in Doctor Strange that some sorcerers can use magic to keep them alive, to sustain them. And we don't know exactly what Agatha's goals are. She's definitely very interested in Wanda and Wanda's magic. As we see all throughout the episode, the entire episode is her trying to unpack and uncover the source of Wanda's magic, the source of her powers. But in a way, it's meant to kind of explain to the audience how everything happened with the Hex bubble and the backstory of Wanda and how she basically created this world and how she created Vision. But we'll get to that later in the episode. Again, this is the longest episode of the season so far, which is kind of bad for me because I try to keep these reviews to like 10 to 15 minutes, but I can't really because these episodes are so long, so short, but so dense. And this episode is definitely no exception. First of all, we get a lot of flashbacks to things we've heard about before in the MCU, but never actually seen. First of all, we see Wanda and Pietro as children, and when the bomb hit. And here's the interesting thing about that scene, which was pointed out to me by one of my friends. We heard that scene from Pietro's point of view in Age of Ultron. Pietro is the one that explained it. We never actually got to hear Wanda's point of view of that situation, which, as you can see, it's a little bit different. Pietro said that they weren't able to move under the rubble. Clearly, we see something different. They were able to move, and we see that it wasn't defective, the missile. We see Wanda kind of did something to it. They call it probability magic, or probability hex, which prevented it from exploding. Then we see later when they join Hydra, Wanda saw something when she was communicating with the Mind Stone, which sort of loosely explains why she and her brother were the only test subjects that were able to survive the experiments by Hydra from the Infinity Stone, the Mind Stone. Again, all of these was kind of preluded by way of the commercials. Like the first commercial we saw, the toaster was basically a reference to the bomb from Stark Industries. Then the second episode we saw some Stryker watch, again referencing William Stryker, and some more Hydra stuff in episode 3, I believe. Again, referencing Hydra. You get to see some Logos stuff. So all of the commercials. That's one of my favorite parts of the show was the commercials, the ad breaks, because they explain so much about Wanda's character, and it sets up this episode especially. So we basically see Wanda see something when communicating to the Mind Stone. We'll know about it a little bit later. Obviously, we get one of the most emotional scenes in the entire show is Vision and Wanda talking, because it always kind of bugged me that we never really get to see any moments with Wanda and Vision in Age of Ultron. And so we go directly into Civil War, and we're supposed to accept that they're a couple now. We didn't really get a lot of character development between the two of them in between Age of Ultron and Civil War, which I believe the Russo brothers did a wonderful job portraying their relationship, but this kind of adds into it. This is one of my favorite parts about the MCU and other franchises like it, because they were able to go back and revisit certain situations that were only referenced, but we never actually got to see. So I liked that part of the episode, and as the more we go into Wanda's backstory in this season, we know, obviously, no surprise to anyone, Tyler Hayward was lying. The footage that we saw of Wanda was doctored. It was changed a little bit to kind of fit his version of the story, which brings up a lot of different questions. I've seen people suggesting that maybe he's a Skrull, and that would fit because he was able to change into Wanda and reshoot the footage somehow, because, you know, Skrulls can do that. But I'm going off a bit on the Skrull theory for a bit, because I know the Skrulls are kind of bad guys in the comics. In the movies, all the Skrulls we saw were mostly good guys, but then again, we only saw a small fraction of the entire species, and maybe that was just the few Skrulls that were actually good. Maybe the entire species is not exactly like that. We know that we're going to see more of the Skrulls in the upcoming Marvel Disney Plus show Secret Invasion, featuring heavily featuring Nick Fury and Talos, the one Skrull from the Captain Marvel movie, which also made an appearance in Far From Home. So yeah, we're getting all these different explanations by way of how Wanda created the Hex, which follows exactly what I just said. But first of all, we got to see that she had this one moment with Vision, and Hayward let her, which suggests, again, he's not all we see. He allowed her to have this one moment alone with her deceased, husband, in a sense. So he was good to her that one time, but then when we see him later in the show, earlier in the show, because, you know, it kind of takes place in a different episode, but we see that he's kind of a dick to Wanda. So we are not exactly, I'm not 100% sure what Hayward and his character is. I'm looking forward to getting more of Hayward the next episode, which I'm sure we're going to get to. But yeah, once she is so frustrated with the loss of Vision and everything that happened to her, we see all the different levels of trauma that she suffered all throughout her life, like losing her parents, the experiments that she went through, losing her brother, losing her husband. All these kind of stuff led her to create the false world in the place where she and Vision planned to live their lives together, as we kind of get a hint to in Infinity War, which obviously they never got a chance to do so, but she kind of found a way to do that. But which kind of brings up another interesting question. She was able to create not only her house, but Vision himself out of nothing. Vision was a creation of her, but he had his own mind. He was able to figure out, he was self-aware, which kind of brings me to the question of, does she create him, or is he completely aware of himself? Which brings me into another nice example, is Elsa creating Olaf in Frozen. She created Olaf, but Olaf is basically his own character. He's allowed to do whatever he wants to. So kind of brings in that question into kind of brings an answer to that question. So she created Vision, but Vision works on his own, similar to the twins. She created the twins basically out of nothing. I mean, I don't know. We're still not sure, because I don't think she willingly created the children. I'm holding on to the theory that there is something else at play here, and we're going to get to see that in the next episode. Absolutely, we finally get to see Vision back talking to Wanda. But then we also got to talk about the post-credit scenes, because there's post-credit scenes in these shows now. White Vision from the comics, a different version of Vision, an alternate Vision, if you would, is they're going there. So now that kind of explains why Hayward was trying to get Wanda out of the Hex. He wasn't trying to retrieve Vision, because obviously he already has Vision's body, or rather had Vision's body in S.W.O.R.D., which I'm assuming he used to recreate the white version of Vision. But all he needed was a way to bring Vision back to life. The life spark, because obviously the original Vision was brought to life via the Mind Stone, and obviously that doesn't exist in the universe anymore, so he needed something else from Wanda, a little bit of that magic that she got by way of the Infinity Stone, the Mind Stone, which brings into a lot of different other questions into the fold, like, did she always have powers, and they were just awakened by the Mind Stone? Did she get all her powers from the Mind Stone? What is happening in here? What does that say about Pietro? Does he also have speed naturally, and it was all awakened by the Mind Stone? And obviously a lot of people say that a lot of people like to go to the mutants stuff, because originally in the comics they were mutants, and they were part of the X-Men, but obviously the mutants don't exist in the MCU just yet, so they couldn't have been mutants all along. I don't know, it doesn't seem like the MCU is trying to retcon this. They introduced a new element that maybe Wanda was a creature that called a Scarlet Witch, which technically is her name from the comics, but I'm guessing a Scarlet Witch is like a mythical being, almost like the Phoenix from the X-Men comics. But maybe that's her. Maybe that's the MCU version of the Dark Phoenix saga. Who knows? Maybe they're doing the Dark Phoenix without the X-Men characters. Technically, it's crazy, and I guess I don't want to say it's a confirmation that Wanda has been this one thing all along. But maybe we'll get to see all of that in the final episode. Now, obviously, like I said, I loved this episode. One of my favorites, and obviously, Elizabeth Olsen nailed this episode. She acted the life out of her character, and obviously the same thing for Catherine Hahn as Agatha. And you need to get used to calling her that now. So those were basically the main focus characters of this episode. But other than that, I can't wait to see the next episode, and can't wait to finally wrap up the season. Maybe I'll do another one of these recaps to kind of talk about the entire season, and next week was just going to be just the next episode, and then the week after, kind of a retrospective of how the entire show ended up being. Maybe I'll consider doing that, but until then, these are my quick thoughts on the episode. Again, I didn't want this episode to go too long, because that's the tendency that I have with these episodes. But what did you guys think about this episode? How are you finding this episode to be? And how are you liking this show? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you all next week for the finale episode of WandaVision. It's crazy to me that it feels like just yesterday we all talked about how it's a black and white sitcom, and what is happening? Why aren't there any more Marvel stuff? And now we're talking about Scarlet Witches and mutants and the Mind Stone and alternate Vision from the comics and all of that stuff. So yeah, this has been a crazy ride, and I'm happy to have been on this ride with the show and everyone who watched the show and everyone who watched these episodes. So see you guys next time for the finale, and until next time, everybody, WandaVision! Hello again, everybody! I really hope you enjoyed this video, because I really enjoyed making it. So, if you like what you've seen here, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more awesome content like this. So, until next time, guys, I'll see you guys next time.